Hello and welcome to the Learning Love Podcast, brought to you by the Learning Love Foundation, helping people transform how they love, live, and lead. I'm your host, Dr. Mark A. Hicks, and I want to thank you for joining us today as we spend some time learning love. Love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. We have to learn how to apply the answer of love to all the many, many things that we deal with in life. And one of the things we have to do, no matter how good we may have it, some people find ways of putting together a pretty good life, but it doesn't matter. Even in those cases, there are times we've got to start over. There's times we have to reset. There's times we have to rebuild. There are struggles that we have to work our way through. And listen, sometimes that gets rough. Sometimes there is trauma. Sometimes there is abuse. Sometimes there is the loss of a job, a career, divorce. There's so many things that we go through in this life that we look around us and think, I got to rebuild this. I got to start over. I got to find a way to put this back together. And that's what I want to talk about today. Among a few other things, I want to talk about how we go about rebuilding. And helping me in that conversation is a man of great wisdom. I am so pleased today to have joining me on the Learning Love Podcast, Audley Stephenson of the Audacious Living Podcast. Is that not a great name for a podcast? He is the host of the Audacious Living Podcast. And listen, he's been doing this a while. He has over 500 episodes of the Audacious Living Podcast. You know, we see people come and go in the podcast world. It takes some effort, takes some work to do this. And people try it. They do a good job. Maybe they get burned out on it or have other things to do. Audley has stayed the course. He has shown his wisdom and helped his audience for a long time now with over 500 episodes. Audley, thanks for being on the show today.
Well, Mark, thank you so much, and I appreciate it. And let's also point out, you were one of those 500 episodes. So, you were part of that wisdom sharing and that knowledge and helping others understand this journey of life that we're all on, right? And that's really what it is. So thank you, and I appreciate the welcome to your platform. Awesome.
Yeah, I was on your show a while back. Had such a great time being on that show, and I'm glad we could connect again and stay in touch. And what a great opportunity this is. So let's just take a moment and introduce yourself. Tell us what you do, what you're about, what's important to you.
It's funny when anytime you sort of think about that question, who you are, as we sit here, Mark, we each are sort of a collection of experiences. And those experiences shape who we are, what we do, how we see the world, how we show up for others. And I really think, it's just been a collection of just really cool experiences that I've ever gone through. And I say cool, but they haven't all been good, right? But it's what you sort of take from that. And I know we'll talk about off the top of rebuilding, and we'll sort of get in that later on. But that's kind of been my story. Like, I'm a guy so early on, I was a big lover of the game. I still am a lover of the game of basketball. Never good enough to play at a high level, but just love the game. And what I had done is I found ways to stay as close to that passion as possible. And there's also some neat things that came out of it. And so I'm based in Toronto, Canada, and I remember many years ago, I was like, hey, I'm a basketball guy, and I want to work in a sports station. So there's a little sports channel here called The Score. Now this is in 2007, right? And I went to work at The Score, and I was an intern, and I'd sling VHS. It was long before digital, right? So VHS tapes, and you're running back and forth from the archive room to the producer to give them this story for this video clip for their story. So you're doing a lot of that kind of stuff. I was convinced, that was my pathway, and that will get me on the pathway to be on TV and talk about basketball. Well, it didn't really happen that way. And at the end of my internship, they said, thank you very much. All the best in your future, Audley. And I left, and that was it. And I remember going, oh, that was very anticlimactic, like nothing came out of that. But the interesting thing that happened was I developed a relationship with one of the reporters, a gentleman by the name of Dave Mendonca, and we developed a friendship. And because we had this mutual love for the game of basketball, back then, this was long before the Toronto Raptors were winning championships. We're in Toronto, Canada. There's a hockey country, so the Leafs rule. Here are these basketball guys that connect, and that was sort of the basis of our friendship. I leave The Score. About a year later, we connect on Facebook, of all places. We start talking about, hey, what is the basketball space? And, basketball doesn't give the love and attention that it should. And it was like, from that conversation, we actually started an NBA podcast. The podcast in totality ran for about 5 years. But the cool thing is probably into year number 2, we were actually getting NBA players on our show. And it was like very, very cool. And then, shortly after that, we were given credentials by the Raptors. And now we're in the locker rooms interviewing players. And for a basketball nut, you're like, oh my gosh, you're giddy, you're excited. There's Kobe Bryant, there's LeBron James, there's Carmelo Anthony. Like, you're seeing all these great players. You're like, oh my gosh. And so that was just an incredible ride. And then in 2011, there was this thing called the NBA lockout. And so the NBA and the players, they had their disagreements. So there was no basketball. In that same year, there was a league that started here in Canada called NBL Canada. And I thought, well, hey, since there's no NBA, let me focus and pivot to this league, because by this time I've established myself as an NBA podcaster. I was like, if I approach them, absolutely they'll want me. And they did. And I worked with them for a number of years. And as I got deeper in the organization, my role grew and I became to do more and more. And then sort of fast forward, the league I started off as a volunteer podcaster. I eventually was named the commissioner. So it's about 6 years later, I'm now the commissioner of this league. And I was huge accomplishment. It was great. Oh, I loved it. It was fantastic. I was in my element. I was close to the game of basketball, passion, doing things I never thought I saw myself doing. And it was a great, great experience. As we know, in 2020, this thing came along called the pandemic, shut everything down. I was floored because I was like, this thing that I love, this thing that got me excited no longer was there. And I think that was an experience that many of us related to. I struggled because I was trying to figure out, and I remember initially I didn't really know what was driving my depression that I was in, didn't understand it, just know that I didn't feel good. And then it took a conversation with a friend of mine where I literally said, ever since I lost basketball, and the moment I said that, I was like, that's it. That's it. Yep. And so being able to identify it, it's so important, I think, in any problem in our lives, or be able to pinpoint this is a problem. And so when I figured out what it was, I'm like, okay, so let me do something else. And I decided that I was going to get back into podcasting again, because it's like Old Faithful, right? Like it never let me down. It always made me feel good. So why not podcast again? And I wanted to do something that really mattered, that was really important to me. Not just another basketball podcast. I wanted to do something that was important. And that had significance in my life. And I remember doing this reflective kind of look back, where I sort of look back at my life and my accomplishments and the victories and successes and all the things that I had done well. And I realized that there was this red thread of audacity that existed. If I didn't take that chance, if I didn't take that leap, if I didn't have a little bit of courage, that little boldness to try something, I wouldn't have been a commissioner. I wouldn't have started a podcast. I wouldn't have gone to the SCORE to be a sports intern that didn't turn into anything. Those things wouldn't have happened. And that was essentially the birth of the Audacious Living Podcast, because I recognize the significance of audacity in my own life. And it's grown from there. I speak, I facilitate, I am an author. That's sort of where the beginning stage is for me. And now for me, it's an opportunity to share something that has been important in my life. And I've recognized that importance. I'm trying to get others and encourage others to do the same. So sometimes I feel like, like I'm a conductor on this train. Guys, everyone, come on. This Audacious train is a fantastic place. Jump on board. I'm telling you, it's taking you to a great place. And so that's, in a nutshell, a really quick nutshell, that's sort of my story and what's got me to the place I'm at now.
It's a great story. And that's, the way you tell that story, I think it captures what we all go through. I've worked with a lot of people over the years. And if you've lived any amount of time at all, life did not turn out the way you thought it would. I've never talked with someone who was up in years that lived a few decades and say, tell us about your life. No one has ever said, my life turned out about like I thought it would. When we're young, we're teenagers, maybe early 20s, when college or something. People say, what are you going to do? What's your life going to look like? What do you want to do for your job? And man, we've got a plan. we always are able to say what we hope to accomplish and what we want to do and what we plan to do. And it never works that way. There's twists and there's turns, there's alterations in the story. And I love that word, that you do have to be audacious. You have to find that way through and believe enough in yourself and believe in the people around you to find that new course. And so you've got a strategy that you talk about of when it comes time to rebuild, when you find those twists in life and you think, what am I going to do now? How am I going to get through this? You've got a particular strategy that you use and that you teach to rebuild. Talk a little bit about that.
That's right. Yeah, thank you. Very much the idea of taking setbacks and taking failures, and and nobody likes failures. We all know that it's that nice feeling. We want to be able to, when we step up to that plate and take that swing, we want to knock out of the park that first at first at bat. But that's not life, as you pointed out. Like, I'm a big fan of the word pivot, right? The idea of, I was going to try this and it didn't work that way, and I pivoted. And if I were to encapsulate, the rebuild strategy, which is an acronym which we'll run through, in one word, it's really about mastering the art of being able to pivot, right? And so pivoting and understanding that this setback, this mishap, it's not permanent. And we sort of feel sometimes that problems that we go through are permanent. And I oftentimes say that as individuals, when it comes to a problem, like I know for myself, when it comes to problems, I'm absolutely undefeated. And the way I know that is because I'm here now. I've had problems, but I'm on the other side. I'm able to talk about them. So we find a way. Maybe the answer isn't ideal. Maybe the answer isn't exactly what we thought. Or maybe the answer got us to a better place. But regardless which option that is for you, you're here on the other side. And so, when it comes to problems, we are absolutely undefeated. But the rebuild strategy, yes, it's an acronym, REBUILD, starting with the R, which is really about reflection. And when we reflect, we're taking an honest look at who we are, our role in it. This is where self-awareness comes into play a lot. I use an analogy of a living room, right? And so if you think about a living room, it's got your coffee table, it's got your couch, it's got your lamp, it's got your sofa, all these things that you'd find in a living room. Now, if you were to turn off that light, the items are not within view. And if you turn it back on, you'll now see them. The light switch didn't put them there. They always were there. The light switch just made them available. So that reflective journey is like essentially clicking on the light switch to allow you to see what's there. And so now you're able to see that couch. And if you pull that couch back, maybe there's some dust bunnies that you need to sweep away or something, right? Like that's kind of what that reflective piece allows you, increases, it awakens your self-awareness, if you will. The next one is evaluate, and E. So E is to evaluate. And that's where it gives you the opportunity to examine all aspects of your life. You're looking at your strengths, your weaknesses, think the resources that you have at your disposal, knowing what is a part of your journey. When you do that, you're able to recognize that, yes, all of these things fed into who I am. Now, what can I take? What can I use? What can help me to kind of moving forward to that next step? B, which is believe. You think of belief as the engine to get things going. So if you're about to embark on anything fantastic, a wonderful journey, an adventure, if you don't believe that you're going to get there, if you don't believe that you're capable, then that journey is going to be that much harder. I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm just saying it's very, very important on your overall journey. So believe is key.
And I just to jump in here, I think a lot of people, as they're going through this, they want to jump to that place of belief. They come up to these hardships and struggles and traumas, and they want to pull themselves up and believe in themselves and just head into the wind. And they want to skip that reflection, that evaluation, that self-awareness. That's hard. That's when we have to really look deep into ourselves. We have to look at the people around us and make some tough choices sometimes. That's maybe the hardest part. We just want to jump into that believe element and just move forward. But you got to look back a little bit sometimes too and really see what got you to this place. Why are you here? So that you can believe in your future.
I'm so glad that you raised that point, Mark, because I'll even, myself, that's a tough one for me at times because I'm I want to jump right into fixing it. I want to jump right into problem solving mode right away. And there are times you do have to slow down. And that's something I've had to teach myself. Just take your time, breathe, understand, look at the whole landscape. And so understand actually leads into the next one is understanding, right? Because when you understand how you got here, maybe there's a trauma that's been unresolved. Maybe there's these patterns that keep coming up over and over and over again that you yourself aren't recognizing. And I think that's why that's so important to understand is those things serve as hidden barriers and they stop you from progressing. So you have the best intentions. Yes, you believe in who you are. You've done the reflective piece, but you haven't understood. It makes it that much more difficult to get through that. So that's what the U and that stands for. The I is for innovate. Innovate's a fun one for me, right? So for the problem solver, you love the I because you want to jump to that right away. You want to figure, okay, now what do I do? That gives you a chance to use your creative skills, the kinds to think differently, the out-of-the-box thinking, to do something that's never been done before. That's the innovation piece because you know that, and I truly, truly believe that every setback it holds like a seed for a new opportunity, fresh ideas, being creative, being bold, right? That's all part of that. So I is always a fun one. L is learn. And that's such a big one. Like there's an expression I say is that you truly haven't made a mistake unless you walk away with the experience without the lesson. right? You haven't learned. Because what you're essentially doing is you're setting yourself up to make that same mistake again or have that same setback or that same failure. So learning is an integral piece of all of this. You have to be able to learn from what you've done, what you've seen, learn from others. It's all part of that, and that's a big one. And then the last thing is the D, and it's kind of putting it all together, right? Putting it all to practice. Maybe you're looking at new approaches, new habits. Maybe you evaluate your own systems for how you move through the world and understand how I can strengthen them or how I can sharpen my skills and create that momentum. That's really what it is. I'm so big on systems. Like you start something and you just automate and you go, right? You just go. So you want to make sure that system supports where you want to go in life. And then that's where the momentum, and then it's automatic at that point, right? And so that's essentially rebuild in a nutshell. I know it's really, really fast, but it's really to understand that failures, as much as they hurt in the moment, as difficult as they are, whether in relationships, your job, your personal life, whatever, as difficult as they are, they're not the end of the world, and there is ways to overcome and outlast those problems.
Absolutely. And we did go through that fast. If you want to take a look at that, it's on Audley's website, bestaudaciouslife.com. You can go to his philosophy, and I'll just read over it real quick. If you are wanting to rebuild your life, you have to reflect, you have to evaluate, you have to believe, come to some understanding, innovate, learn, develop. That's all on his website, bestaudaciouslife.com, among some other great items on there. So, Audley, you've been sharing on your podcast through that evolution for a long time now. As I said, over 500 episodes that you have, and now you are becoming an author.
Yeah, it's been an incredible journey. And so much for me, I've always been about sharing. The sharing is just so important. It's one thing to take an experience that you go through and get through it, right? So you go through this really difficult thing, you take that rebuild strategy and you use it to get you past this thing. You come out the other side and you feel great. It's fantastic. But the opportunity now to look back to someone and say, hey, you know what? I know this is a tough thing, and look, here's what you can do. And that's very much what this book is about for me. It's entitled Living Your Best Audacious Life Ever. And for me, the real power is captured in the subtitle of the book. It's how unleashing your inner greatness can change the world. And I truly, truly believe that we all have this inner greatness inside of us, this audacity that's inside. And I think what happens is, whether it's be the setbacks of life, failures, people have told you, no, you can't do it, whatever, all those things have weathered us down to make us feel that we can be audacious. And, for me, I feel I'm talking about audacity all the time, every day. And anytime I get into a conversation with someone, and I hear this quite often, people say, oh, I wish I was more audacious. Well, you are, you're just not using it. And that's what it is. Like, if life is a racetrack and we are cars on the racetrack, audacity is the engine in the car. Every single car is an engine, I should say. And so it's a matter of us tapping into that and using it. And I think the perfect example of that is that of a baby. Watch a baby learning how to walk, right? No one gave that child permission. No one said that child couldn't do it. And regardless if those things were said or not said, the baby's going to try to walk anyways. It's going to get up, and we know what it looks like, right? We get up, we see that wobble, and they may stumble. They might take that first step, wobble again, and stumble, but they're going to get back up. And that's just the natural. So that's audacity in action, and it's very, very natural. No one taught that child how to do that. They saw, and they said, let me give this shot myself. And so that's the audacity for us to get back to our childlike selves, right? And recognize that we do have it within us. It's a matter of just getting up and going. And so that's really what the book encapsulates. What I want to be able to do, there's some beliefs that I also want to sort of demystify when it comes to audacity. One of them being that some people seem to think that to be audacious, I've got to climb Mount Everest or be the loudest person in the room or swim with sharks and fight them in the Atlantic Ocean or skydive at planes. Like, those are all great big things, absolutely. But audacity doesn't have to be those things. I mean, anytime you step out of your comfort zone or try something differently, I'm sure, Mark, the first time you said, I'm going to get on a podcast and be a podcaster, you're like, okay.
Exactly
I'm not
right.
sure. I'll give it a shot anyways, right? That's
still like that.
Audacity.
I still feel that way sometimes.
Right? And so, but to your credit, you still fight through that. That's what we need to recognize, that yet those feelings that we feel, they are natural. They're part of the human experience. But to let them hold you back isn't what we need to we need to step away from that. We need to be able to say, I don't know what this is. I'm not quite sure. I've never done it before, but I'm going to try it and see what happens. I'm a big fan of the word just try, right? And so recognizing that Audacity isn't just big things. Audacity isn't reserved for special people, CEOs, top athletes, entrepreneurs. It can be any one of us. And I think when we start to break those things down and understand what we have is inside of us already, it's there. It's a matter of tapping into it. Then I think it's golden. So yeah, that's in a nutshell. The book sort of talks about some personal lessons from my life, lessons from tons of great podcast guests who've had insights. So I incorporate those stories and some of the frameworks like we talk about the rebuild, and there's others I include in that as well. And it all comes together for a book that I think will be very impactful, slated for the spring release of this year. So I'm excited.
That is really exciting. I love when you say that we already have the audacity. We have it. We have to learn to use it. That's what I say about love and relationships. We have the capacity. We have that in us, but it becomes a learned skill. We have to learn how to use it. We have to learn how to apply it, learn that it's there in us. We have it naturally. I use that same analogy with love. The children learning to walk. We have it in us, but you still have to learn it. You still have to put it out there. You have to fall a few times, and you have to learn the process. We have all these things in us, and we're either not taught it, or we forget, or we get beaten down so much in life that we assume that that's somebody else. And we think we may have to mimic somebody else's actions to get there. And we don't.
That's right.
It's in all of us. We have love. We have audacity. We have the thriving life in us, but we have to learn how to live it.
And Mark, I agree with you. And also add, because it is an ongoing journey. I oftentimes equate it to sort of working out in the gym, right? Don't go to the gym once or twice and go, hey, I'm fully worked out. Great. Life is good. Let's go on. It's an ongoing process. And I say that because even myself, this guy that's Mr. Audacity that's out there talking about it, encouraging, I've got my own moments too where I'm like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe. I experience that too. And I have to remind myself every so often, no. You can do this. And sure, I think what happens is I've got a lot more practice at it. It becomes more natural to me. There's messages I share that are very applicable to me too, because we are all human. It's part of the human experience. I just know that these down periods are going to come. So life is going to be like a series of hills and valleys, right? On the hill, top of the hill, there's celebration, there's joy, there's accomplishment, there's peace, there's all these fulfillment, all these wonderful things. So when I was named commissioner of the basketball league, I felt all of these things, right? But then when the pandemic came, I went down in that valley and I was depressed and I felt negative and I didn't feel good. And it wasn't a great space for me to be in, right? That's just the cycle of life. You know that, yeah, I'm going to go down this valley. The key is not to stay there. The key is that it's not your home, right? Because the longer you're there, the more difficult it will be to live the life that you want to be able to live. And so you have to find ways to climb out of that valley and get to the top. Now, we're not saying ignore the bad stuff or pretend like they're not there, but also recognize that during moments of sadness and of negativity, that we still can experience joy and peace and happiness.
Absolutely. If we want to find that joy, that peace, that happiness, where do we find you, Audley? What's the best way to keep in touch with you, to find your podcast, to keep track of when your book is coming out? How do we find you?
You mentioned earlier, thank you for that. I'll say it again, my website, bestAudaciouslife.com. That serves as the hub. Also on social media under my handle, The Oddman, TheAudman. We're regularly putting out episodes and sharing, and I think I'm an engaging guy, and so if you reach out to me, I'll probably answer back and have something to share with you. But yeah, that would be the starting point. Like I said, just really, really excited about move forward with the book and all that's planned for it. And we'll do a launch and just exciting things. And so, yeah, so that would be the best place to stay connected. And thanks, Mark. This is really, really good.
Oh, thank you for being here. And I will mention, I'm a Morgan James author, and that is your publisher now as well. Welcome to the Morgan James family. Glad you are on board.
Yes.
And as we wrap up today, I hope that you will apply what Audley is teaching. You can rebuild. You can live that audacious life. You can have love and relationships in the life that you dream, but it's not going to be exact. There's going to be twists. There's going to be turns. There's going to be hardships. There's going to be things that happen where you have to rebuild, but that can be done. And I appreciate so much the wisdom that Audley brings today. And I hope that we can all apply that to our lives as we face a life of hardship, but also we face it with audacity. Thank you for listening today. As always, I want to thank my producer, Abby Graves of Abby Graves Production, and everyone that is associated with the Learning Love Foundation that brings you this broadcast each week. You can find out more at learninglovefoundation.com. Until next week, love well, everyone.